British say, right or wrong my country.
The Battle of Britain ended with the Luftwaffe sustaining heavy losses. Steinhoff and other leading pilots suggested new strategies, but Goering was stubborn and resisted any recommended changes. By 1943, Steinhoff was one of the Luftwaffe's highest-scoring aces. Ordered to North Africa, he took command of the 77th Fighter Group. With the growing Allied fighter and bomber forces pressing home their attacks, Rommel's Africa Corps crumbled, and Steinhoff's bullet-riddled Messerschmitts retreated to Sicily.
This was rural Sicily, a peaceful sight, but most likely the people had fled in panic, for wherever we appeared in the land, death and destruction followed in our wake.
The overall commander of the Luftwaffe fighter arm was the swashbuckling Adolf Galland, and he took personal charge in Sicily. On June the 25th, 1943, Galland ordered Steinhoff to lead a combined German-Italian force of 100 fighters against a flight of 200 American B-17s.
I pulled my Messerschmitt up to the same height as the bombers as though I had done it 100 times before. The crosswires of my sights shook to the cannons.
Steinhoff knew he'd lost the battle. His squadrons had broken off short of fuel after only minutes of combat. With 200 B-17s to aim at, Steinhoff's kill was the only one brought down. Goering was furious and told Steinhoff that one pilot from each of his fighter wings would face court-martial for cowardice.
Goering had grip and control building up the Air Force, controlling the industry before the war, but he didn't have any strategic experience or vision.
Steinhoff's wing leaders stood up to Goering, volunteering themselves to face the court-martial. Goering had to back down. Some of the Luftwaffe's finest aces would be disgraced. But there was no reprieve from bombing. Allied air forces pounded Sicily in preparation for the August 1943 invasion. Steinhoff wrote that his pilots were like hunted animals seeking cover in that Stalingrad of the south. Galland ordered the retreat, and Steinhoff's fighters escaped to the Italian mainland. But American bombers soon followed. By midsummer 1943, the Allies' four-engine bombers were pounding German and Italian forces.
On August the 19th of 1943, our target was the city of Foggia.
On only his third bomb run, B-17 pilot Bud Kingsbury was about to encounter Johannes Steinhoff's Messerschmitt.
We were told to expect between 250 and 300 single and twin-engine German and Italian fighters. And as we crossed the Mediterranean, they just came up like a swarm of flies. The B-17 had a 10-man crew, and 8 of those men had 1 or 2 guns apiece. We had about 70-75 seconds of firing those 50 calibers. A little over 7,000 rounds total.
Luftwaffe fighter pilots said that attacking a B-17 formation was like trying to run through a shower without getting wet. The US raid on Foggia was one of the most devastating of the Italian campaign.
There were tens of thousands of people killed, and my squadron actually took out the powerhouse, and it was terrible.
As the B-17s withdrew, Steinhoff's Me-109s pounced again. Bud Kingsbury's plane was badly hit.
They knew we were going down, and one by one they picked off those guns in the back. The fighters kept coming. That they were doing their job just like we did ours. They had to get us out of the sky, and they were doing a heck of a job on me.
Wounded in the shoulder and neck by shrapnel, Bud gave the order to bail out.
The 5 gunners in the back never had a chance to exit the aircraft. They were either all dead or so badly wounded they couldn't get out.
Bud's parachute opened, and slowly he began his descent towards the sea.
When I got to about 10 or 12,000 feet, I saw two 109s coming in at me. They were the last bunch of the fighters, probably coming back to refuel and rearm. And I thought sure they were going to spray me, but instead they broke formation and dipped their wings as they went around me as if to give me a salute and say, have a nice ride down. He shot my airplane down, but he didn't shoot me. That's a real sportsman.
Bud Kingsbury swam for 32 hours to reach shore. He was the sole survivor of the 10-man crew and spent the rest of the war in Stalag Luft 3, the prisoner of war camp made famous by the film The Great Escape. In 1943, US bomber crews were required to fly 25 combat missions. A third did not make it to the end. But the Luftwaffe was faring much worse. German fighter pilots had no rotation. They were to fly until the war was won, or die trying. Steinhoff felt the German war effort was doomed, and so too did his enemies.
The German fighter pilot of 1944, say at the time of Normandy, time of the invasion, was nothing, couldn't compare with the German fighter pilot of 1940. Couldn't compare with him. They're different people.
The normal attrition rate in a wing was in a mission 50%. So every second pilot doesn't return statistically. And we had young pilots not trained, without experience, but forced to go in combat. The survival time was 3 missions, and they were killed, was murdered.
But there was one more brutal year of fighting yet to come. And still the Reich continued to observe its rituals. Steinhoff was ordered to Hitler's headquarters to receive the sword's emblem to his knight's cross with oak leaves.
He looked worn out. It was the face of an old man, the watery, almost muddy eyes seeming to stare into the distance. His voice was rough, like a chain-smoker's.
Gunther RALL, too, was shocked to see what had become of the Führer, who'd awarded him his oak leaves just a year earlier.
This man is not anymore completely under control, you know? He was a little bit confused about his own situation.
Meanwhile, British Lancasters, B-17s and the rest of the Allied bombing force were striking deep into Germany. The Luftwaffe command had not anticipated these sustained, long-range attacks, and Goering refused to take responsibility. All blame for the devastation lay with his fighter squadrons, and he issued this order.
The Jagdwaffe is going to give battle to the last man. If it does not, it can go and join the infantry. The German people don't give a damn about the Jagdwaffe's losses. We were all exploited by the Nazis. Our leaders believed, or pretended to us, that the best thing for us to do was to defend the fatherland. I would like to see someone who would not defend their fatherland. They would be called traitors and put up against the wall.
With Adolf Galland now tacitly supporting his renegade pilots, a plot to remove Goering developed, also known as Get Fatty. One of Steinhoff's pilots suggested assassination. Cooler heads reasoned that the Reichsmarshal's murder alone would do nothing to improve the Luftwaffe's strategy. The conspirators turned to General Ritter von Greim, Goering's subordinate. He sympathized with Steinhoff and the others, but said he was powerless to act. Then suddenly, an order to come to Berlin was issued to the 5 leading conspirators, including Steinhoff. The SS had been monitoring their every move. Now, Goering wanted to meet them, face to face. Colonel Gunther Lutzow was the commander's spokesman, and he told Goering that he'd humiliated them. But there was still time, he said, to prevent the rest of Germany being reduced to ashes. Goering reacted angrily, again criticizing their conduct in battle. Lutzow shouted back that Goering had ignored the four-engine bombers completely and had starved the Jagdwaffe of new aircraft and weapons. Shaken, Goering threatened to have Lutzow shot and stormed out of the room, leaving Steinhoff, Lutzow and the others to ponder their fate.
Well, in wartime Germany, if you lose a battle like that, it's just like cutting your own throat. Goering fired and tried to court-martial and was going to have Galland shot.
Steinhoff was summoned by the head of Luftwaffe personnel and suspended. The conspirators were spared only by the intervention of Hitler. The Führer would give them one last chance, in effect, a suicide mission. It was Goering who relayed the order to Galland: prove the fighter potential of the Me-262 jet.